Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. My name's Bryan Jack Holder. Come on in. Hey. And I'm running for Iowa House District 15. I sent out a press release yesterday to dozens of media organizations, and thankfully the Council Bluffs Daily Nonpareil and Scott Stewart is here to record the press conference and to ask me some questions. So I'm going to read my press release again. So today's date, it's September 17, 2025. It's Constitution Day here in America. And I'm going to read it. Dr. Bryan Jack Holder, lifelong resident of Pottawatomie County and 5-time candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, is running in the Republican primary election for Iowa House District 15 to be held June 2nd, 2026. Iowa House District 15 contains all of Harrison County and a large portion of Pottawatomie County outside the Council Bluffs city limits. The current District 15 state representative, Matt Winschittle, is running for U.S. House in the Republican primary, and state law forbids running for 2 partisan offices in the same election. The Republican nomination for the general election on November 3rd, 2026 is up for grabs and will be determined on June 2nd, 2026. Iowa law requires candidates for state representative to reside in the district and to gather 50 signatures from eligible electors also residing in the district. Iowa law also requires a notarized affidavit of candidacy with the candidate's signature to secure ballot access. 51 signatures and 1 can run for state representative. Bryan Jack Holder is a graduate of St. Albert High School, Iowa Western Community College, Bellevue University, and Creighton Law School. He has worked in his family's photography and video business for over 40 years. Last year, Holder ran unsuccessfully for Pottawatomie County Auditor, yet earned 13,561 votes with no campaign contributions. Holder has 4 main goals in running for District 15. Goal number 1, advocate for better representation through smaller constituencies. Goal number 2, advocate for the involvement of all citizens in the decision-making process. Quite frankly, it's 2025. We the people should be polled before we're taxed for things we'll never see. Goal number 3, advocate for elimination of the taxpayer-funded GOP primary election. Undo the heavy burdens placed upon Iowans. State law allows political parties to nominate candidates through caucuses and conventions without taxpayer money. Parties should be free to do the same with their primary election. Imagine the time, money, and energy saved. Goal number 4, advocate that all ballot certified candidates be invited to participate in multiple public forums throughout District 15, free of charge. Everyone invited. Bring your cameras. Stream from your phone. Let's have the great civil conversation 250 years after this whole thing officially started. Dr. Holder invites anyone interested in running for public office or interested in how government operates on the body politic to contact him. More voices, more choices. A Liberty Caucus for all. And my contact information is bjh12572@gmail.com, and my phone number is 402-689-1817. So now I'll answer any questions that anyone has. And do you have some questions, Scott?
I mean, yeah, you want me to go first?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Can you speak to, well, I guess I'll just be blunt.
Yeah.
You have run for several races. You have not won election to those. I mean, you had a good showing, I think, in the Pottawatomie County Auditor race.
Mm-hmm.
Why should a voter take your campaign for this seat seriously?
Well, voters should always take anyone's campaign seriously, but I think it speaks volume about me and my character that I've never asked anyone for any campaign contributions, and I've never asked anyone for any votes. So I think that demonstrates to the public that I can't be bought, I can't be paid for, I can't be corrupted, and that's, I think, the biggest problem with our political system now is that it requires, in certain races, tens of millions of dollars. In this race, you know, if I ran like my campaign opponents possibly will, and my current state representative, Matt Winchell, you know, the last time he ran, I believe he raised close to $500,000 to run for a state house seat to represent 33,000 Iowans. Now, why should anyone be a $500,000 to run for a legislative seat just to represent 33,000 people? Personally, I think it's ridiculous that this money has corrupted our political system, and the politicians, they haven't done anything to change it. They talk about, well, you know, politics is being ruined by the influence of big money and the donor class, yet they still continue to accept the money from the people that they say are the problem with the system. So they need to have the political courage just to say, you know what, I'm gonna run for this office. I'm not gonna take money from hardworking people just to put up some campaign signs and put out some radio and TV ads. So
you hear folks when they talk about third-party candidates or candidates who are more of a dark horse, long shot kind of candidate, that, you know, there's a split between some people who say, you know, you should vote for the candidate that you think is the most aligned with your values, and some people who say, well, I should vote among the pool of candidates I think are viable, are likely to actually win.
yeah.
Particularly in something like a primary where there might be several people running. So I hear and appreciate what you're saying to I guess to my first question, but can you, I guess, are you running to win, or are you running to make
Oh no,
money?
I'm running to win this primary.
How do you think you can overcome the disadvantage of not having that money then?
Well, my opponent is a political unknown. She has not run for any political office. I'm talking about my primary opponent. And so she is going to have to get out there in Pottawatomie County and Harrison County and meet people. And I'm going to be doing that through the petitioning process. You know, you only need 50 signatures to get on the ballot, but my goal is to get hundreds of signatures. And I don't think that's going to be a problem. I've gotten thousands of signatures in all my other campaigns to run for Congress and other offices. So
I also wanted to ask that you talk about getting the money out of politics, the influence that has. Do you not think that would be greater if the parties went to a nominating process by convention? Or, I mean, that sounds an awful lot like handing it over to the insiders of the party to me.
well, the insiders are already controlling it. Our current state representative, he can't run for this office if he files to run for Congress next March. And who's my opponent? Is that an outsider? Is that a rank and file person? No, she's the chairwoman of the Harrison County Republican Party. So that, I would say she's, at least in the terms of George Orwell, she may not be an inner party member, but she's certainly an outer party member. She's not one of the proletariat, one of the regular average people. But I want to return to your previous question. You can ask more, but you know, when voters are selecting who they're going to vote for to represent them, you know, like you said, they want to pick somebody that maybe shares their values and their principles. And you also said, what was the other reason people vote for somebody? Because,
well, I mean, particularly
their viability.
Their viability is the big
Yeah.
factor.
We've been conditioned in this country to totally disregard the fact that this person is going to be our representative. Our elected bodies are analogous to hiring a lawyer to protect your rights in a court of law. Instead of hiring a lawyer to go to the state legislature, we elect these people from these parties mostly. And so many of them, they have no experience whatsoever in representing anybody. They maybe represent themselves and their fellow party members, but I myself, I have a law degree from Creighton University School of Law. And for 3 years, I was taught how to represent people. Whether I agreed with the case or the issues, it was up to the client, which would be us constituents, to decide what laws are passed. So the unilateral decision-making, at least for Iowa House District 15, will come to a swift and peaceful death. So,
to pull out that analogy just a little bit, when I think a lot of people are hiring lawyers, they're influenced by big billboards on the side of the road, or they call a hotline and just get assigned an attorney, or they have heard a name before.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how you're suggesting we should be selecting politicians, though, I don't think, is it?
No, what I'm suggesting is that you need to take into account this person's experience in making decisions for a whole bunch of people. And have they done that? Have they been in positions of power before? Have they been in positions of leadership? But in terms of me as a representative, if I'm up there and I'm voting on a bill, I'm going to poll as many of my constituents that want to participate as possible. And I have an idea to have two different polls for the constituents of District 15. One would be an anonymous poll, and the other one would be a public poll. And what do I mean by a public poll? Well, when you sign my nomination petition to go on the ballot to run for this office, you're part of my campaign too. You voters, that eligible electors, are the foundation of my campaign. According to Iowa law, I have to get 50 other people to agree to let me to do something that I don't think I should have to ask permission to run. That's another thing that should be addressed at the state legislature, because we turn in 2 documents to run for office. You turn in your signatures, all your sheets, but you also have to turn in an affidavit of candidacy. So in this instance, we've got 50 signatures and 1 signature, and we need both to get on the ballot. Why is this more important than that? The affidavit of candidacy. If you want to run, you can run, you know, and I've heard people complain, well, we'll have too many names on the ballot, it'll be confusing. Well, I know our government has plenty of paper and ink to write laws, to write rules and regulations, and that's confusing for most of us. So I think this process should just be simplified, you know, in terms of, there's a comedy called, what is it called? It's The Campaign. It's called The Campaign, with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. And it's a congressional campaign. The movie's about a congressional campaign, and I've run for Congress 5 times. Well, the one character and the other one, all they had to do was turn in 1 paper in the state of South Carolina, and they're now running for Congress. So here in Iowa, you got to get 1,726 signatures to run. And I probably would have run for U.S. House a year ago, and I probably would have run for U.S. House this year, because we have a structural problem with our federal government. Is the House of Representatives has not kept up in terms of the number of representatives with the increase in the population. But I believe the same problem exists here at the state of Iowa. Our state house and state senate districts, they cross all sorts of boundaries of political subdivisions, like school districts and community college districts. And these school districts are just ignored. These are different community of interests, and they may have interests that are adverse to the people in another county. And so you've got to break the constituency down to its smallest unit. And that's the discussion that I'm having, and I think it's a discussion that more of us need to have, because so many of these people that we elect at the state and federal level, they're unaccountable to us because we never see them. They either live too far away, or they're in a social class where you're not going to interact with them. So I want to be able to see my state representative at the grocery store, at the gas station, and I want to be able to shake their hand and be friendly with them and thank them for representing our liberties in office. But oftentimes I've run into some of them outside of political events, and they're totally, not only are they fearful, but they don't want to hear any constructive criticism. They think that they get to go up there and they have some kind of mandate to do whatever they want to do, and that doesn't work for a lot of us. So I didn't mean to go off on that.
You're fine. You've used the phrase Liberty Caucus. You had previously run as a free and independent candidate, previously as a libertarian. When I've thought of you, think of the Libertarian Party. Can you speak to running as a Republican, how your affinity for the Republican Party?
My primary loyalty is to our Constitution and to the people here in America and everything this country stands for. So these parties are used just to divide us, conquer us, control us. And the Republican Party didn't like people like me being in their party a decade ago. They thought we were too extreme in our advocacy for liberty. And so, you know, after participating in that process a few times, I left that party and joined the Libertarian Party of Iowa. Now, at the time I joined it back in 2016, the Libertarian Party of Iowa was not a state recognized political party. So they had to run a candidate for either governor or president, and that year it was a presidential race. So they ran Gary Johnson nationally, and he got the Libertarian Party enough votes that I say we, they, whatever, we became a political party. And what that does is, with a political party in Iowa, it allows you to have a primary election for offices. And on top of that, it also allows you to nominate candidates at a convention in lieu of having primary candidates, because there were a lot of our ballot lines on the primary, Libertarian primary in 2018, that did not have any candidates. So we were able to nominate candidates at convention. And we did all of this without costing the taxpayers of Iowa a single penny. So we put candidates on the ballot for several congressional districts, and the gubernatorial candidate that year, though, we didn't nominate him at a convention. He actually went out and petitioned, and another friend of mine petitioned. So we had a contested gubernatorial race the first year that the Libertarians were a party in Iowa. My friends, we'd meet up, we had a debate in this very room where two major party candidates got to discuss the issues. And so, you know, I went through that, trying to think what else. COVID in 2020, I ran as a Libertarian, and that was a presidential year, and we did not have a good candidate for the Libertarian Party that year, and she failed, underperformed here in Iowa, and we lost our party status. So you go from being a party and being on par, at least in terms of the ballot access laws, with the Republicans and Democrats, to going back to you know, sort of a second-class citizen status. And we prepared for the 2022 election, and we had somebody that had to go out and get signatures. Now this is part of my political history, but this is all part of what I'm doing now and why I'm standing here before you to a mostly empty room. The Republicans, they blamed me, and I have receipts. They blamed me for David Young losing the congressional race for the old 3rd District in 2018. I got enough votes that I almost covered the difference, the margin of victory for Democrat Sidney Axney. But there were 3 other third-party candidates in that race that also got votes. So it took 4 independent candidates to get enough votes to spoil the election. Well, the Republican Party of Iowa didn't like that. So in 2020, I ran again. That time, David Young lost by a little over a point and a half, and I received 3.4% of the vote. And so they blamed me a second time for David not winning. And in 2021, they decided, you know what, we're gonna make sure this photographer kid out here in Council Bluffs can't run for Congress again. So they increased the number of signatures that I needed to get on the ballot in 2022. They increased that threshold from 375 signatures in Pottawatomie County to 1,726 signatures total, with at least half of them in half of the counties of the district. And so the district and this is another part of it too, they did the redistricting after the 2020 census, and the legislature moved Potawatomi from the 3rd district with Des Moines, where I was twice a spoiler, to the 4th district, where my 2 to 4% of the vote couldn't spoil anything because it's one of the most Republican voting districts in the country. But I was able to get on the ballot for the 2022 election, not by petitioning, although I did petition, but I conducted a caucus, and it was a Liberty Caucus, and I called it Liberty Caucus. So I went around to over half the counties in the district, meeting with people, caucusing. They'd signed my petition, and they had been in attendance at my caucus. So that's how I got on the ballot in 2022. Received 2% of the vote for Congress as Liberty Caucus, and I think the raw number of votes was, I think it was a little over 6,000. But, you know, I got cut off from 90% of the people that had voted for me in the 2 previous elections, or 3 previous elections. So it was, you know, it was a good experience. I got to go speak at the Iowa State University in the Student Union for an hour. They gave me an hour there. I got to speak at the State Fair again. So, and I made a promise at the State Fair that year that I wouldn't run for federal election again. And so I guess I am keeping that promise. I'm running for State House of Representatives. So, is it okay if I get another question from?
Please.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. Bryan, I am a member of a nonprofit group called Watchful Hearts.
Yes.
And we advocate for the safety of nursing home residents. Would you support a bill that would allow nursing home residents the right to have a camera in their room if they choose to?
Absolutely. I think that would be a wonderful idea. I've had my grandparents in nursing homes in the past. And my mother is currently in a nursing care facility. She's been there for 6 months. And it worries me that I can't be there all the time. And it's difficult for any family member that has a loved one in a facility. Just that peace of mind that you can check in on them and see they're okay. And I would be happy to introduce a bill like that. You're welcome, you're welcome. And I know you've been trying to get this advocated for up there for years, trying to work with both Republicans and Democrats. And this, I think, is one of those issues that, you know, it should be at least an 80-20 split on whether we can have these cameras for our loved ones in the nursing homes. You know, you shouldn't have to do what you've done, and I apologize for that, because it should be as simple as making a phone call to your representative. If something that is that helpful, you know, it's not like you're putting hidden cameras anywhere, and the resident knows it's there. So.
And a lot of nursing home residents cannot speak up for themselves because
Oh,
of dementia.
right. They have dementia. They have a diminished capacity for decision making,
And the bills that we've tried to get passed in the last 5 years all have provided for privacy, and one person only would have the feed to the camera. You know, it's not like it would be broadcast.
right.
So
Oh, yeah.
there's just really no reason not to allow it, except that the Iowa Healthcare Association does not want transparency.
No, I know, and I'm sure that not just the nursing home industry, but there's other people that don't want people to be able to check on their loved ones. And it's just, and I know there've been some deaths by negligence in the state of, I don't know if there's been any violent attacks of nursing home.
Just practically weekly reports of abuse all around Iowa.
Yeah, and this is an issue in other states too. There've been some very tragic deaths of nursing home residents.
There are many states now that have passed the bill, and many of them are in the Midwest. We're kind of lacking behind.
Yeah,
Lagging.
no, I totally agree with that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then the wonder too, and this is government's supposed to work for us. There should never be anyone hired in any position of trust and care that has a record, you know, of hurting people. But sometimes that happens. They get in there, and then you're wondering, gosh, you know, I expected this person to be able to, or this, it's too much trust in organizations that, you know, sometimes they're cutting corners with compliance with whatever safety regulations they need.
Right, and there's just no excuse for treating people bad.
No, I mean, I think you have to just consider, what if it was your loved one? I mean, but some people don't think about that.
Until you're in the position, maybe.
Right, yeah. Did you have any other? Okay.
I wanted to ask what your thoughts on Representative Whitshittl's are. You think he has done a good job?
Well, I've only had Matt for, would have been the 2022 election. So 23, so I guess he's been my state representative for 2 years now. I used to go up to his folks' gun shop and look around. I never purchased any firearms there, but I think I got a couple of magazines for a pistol that there's certain people in certain states that would put me in prison for, because they have more than 10 rounds. But I had talked to his folks. Matt, I've met him a few times. I filmed a forum back in 2022 up at the Rand Center in Missouri Valley, where he had a primary opponent, and it was a nice event. But one of the things Matt said, and he was running to be my state representative, when asked what his top 3 priorities were in the legislature, he said, and I've got receipts, folks, I've got receipts, I've got film. He said, freedom, freedom, and freedom. Well, I went up and talked to him after the event, and I asked him, Matt, how come you increased my signatures in 2021 to run for Congress? How come you increased it by 400%? And he couldn't give me that answer. I asked the same question of State Representative Steve Holt after a 4th of July parade up in Missouri Valley. And I don't know, I can't answer that. I asked State Representative Tom Moore the same question. And he thought it was fair. So I've got tape of that too. Anybody wants to look at my political history and what I've done can go to my YouTube channel. It's all there. I've got many of these videos on my Facebook page. And there's really no need for me to go purchase a campaign site to put all this content out there, because it's already there. But getting back to Matt Whitshittle, yeah, I just think he's part of the problem up there is with the ballot access laws. So, you know, to have a party that has almost unilateral control of state government, and you make it so very difficult for just some average person that wants to get involved, just like my friend Julie here. She could run for office and just be an advocate for watchful hearts, just for watchful hearts, you know, cameras for our loved ones in the facilities. But they've made it impossible for her to do that if she wanted to run for Congress under watchful hearts. She couldn't do that. And I don't think that's what the First Amendment is about. I think these ballot access laws violate the First Amendment, and they violate the 14th Amendment, because they're setting up double standards between citizens for no reason whatsoever. So,
would you speak to, I guess you mentioned the near total control the Republican Party of Iowa has in the legislature. It has been my experience talking with lawmakers that really it is the leadership in both the Senate and House caucuses that have control, that you'll have committee chairs who don't even know what's going on with their own bills, don't know what the negotiations relative to their own committees are. So supposing that you are elected to this seat, I guess, how are you going to
work
make
with
a change
these people?
there? Well, how are you going to get past the blockade that the caucus leaderships have?
Well, they can restrict and not bring up bills or shuffle it, or I guess you can't light a fire inside the state capitol, but they can certainly take it and, rip it up. But that doesn't matter. The idea is still out there of how to reform government. I presented, multiple issues, but in terms of the quote leadership, that's what happens when you subject yourselves to some kind of hierarchy in terms of the representation that we're supposed to have in our government, because it doesn't, it's not about us anymore, it's about them and what their agenda is. And so they've got hidden agendas, they've got public agendas, but we have rights to participate in the government and to have the issues we care about become law, not just the things that they want to do for their friends in other powerful institutions like corporations and banks and pharmaceuticals. I think it's interesting. You go and look. I'll be forming a campaign committee for this, and I'm going to have to appoint a treasurer, and I will raise campaign funds to do whatever we need to do to get the message out there. But I'm going to do all of the legwork. I don't expect people to purchase my campaign shirt, go knock on doors for me. I don't need anybody doing that, because the buck stops, like Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. The BS stops here with me. So I'm not getting, there's no dark money supporting what I'm doing, advocating for freedom. And I do this advocation for freedom every 2 years. There've been a couple times I've run for Iowa Western Board of Trustees, and that I did that just so that there was more than one choice on the ballot. Because how can we say to my friends that use the D word, the democracy word, how can you have a democracy when there's only one choice or two choice? And there's other people out there that are trying to be a third choice, a fourth choice, a fifth choice. And the first two choices keep them out of the discussion. So I think that goes everything against the country was founded upon and the rights that we're supposed to have in 2025. So, Julie, you had a...
It was just about the question about Representative Winchell.
Oh, yeah.
He's been very reluctant to support a camera bill, and he has cited privacy issues, and I don't believe that he has really talked to his constituents about it.
Yeah.
So I think we really need somebody that will find out.
Oh, yeah.
What the people want.
Yeah. And like I've said before, it's not about what I want, it's about what everybody wants. But if you have some ideas to reform government, and I have some ideas, let's put them out there. Let's not say, no, your idea, it's too crazy, it would never work, we can't try it. But they don't even want us talking about it. They don't even want us talking about the issues. They want to have us hyper-focused on whatever issue they can use. There's a term that I never heard this term before. It wasn't in any of the psychology books that I studied. It's called gaslighting. And it's basically you give out so much information that people start to question their own reality. And I think that's where we are in this country, is the gaslighting. They want everybody to be sort of a wind-up toy, and they let it go. And the government, I wouldn't say it wants the chaos, but it benefits from the chaos. The people in our government and in our society that want tighter controls over everything and more regulations, they thrive off the chaos, because they can use that. And we've seen this throughout American history and other countries' history, where they use the emergency or the crisis to totally crack down on any dissenters and consolidate power completely. So that's the history of the 20th century, was mostly about that.
I don't think I have anything else for you.
Okay.
I might have a question or two, just curiosity off the record. But
Okay,
I think
sure,
I'm
yeah.
content here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna wrap up the press conference. Did you guys have any? Okay. You know, I don't like doing this. I didn't grow up dreaming about doing this stuff, running for office. I just wanted to be a basketball player, and then later, when that career didn't work out, I became a photographer and a videographer. I just am the guy in the back of the room with the camera filming things. But at some point in my life, and this probably has happened for many of you, where you just say, you know what, I don't agree with the way they're approaching this issue, and I'm gonna say something. Well, if you can say something in front of a group of people, you at least know that there's somebody else out there that's keeping the flame of liberty alive, that's bucking the system just a little bit and questioning the authority. So it's not easy to do, it's not fun, but I think it has to be done. So, all right, well, I'm gonna shut the camera off and talk with Scott, so.